The Bucks losing to the Nets by 39 without James Harden? Yeah, that did happen at one point during the game. Is it time to panic yet? KD, straight cash from the field last night. Is he the best player in the league overall now? Who will prevail tonight, the Liberty Bell or the ref's whistle? So pull up in your best ride. Oh yeah, we see you, Devin Booker. Kick back.
He got that from Westside Phoenix. I know where he got that at.
The jump starts now. Even Devin Booker's pulling up.
I'm with you, Devin.
Woo-hoo. Do you have any cars like that?
Do I? No. I have a 1969 Bronco, but it's not like low riding like that, though.
It's kind of fun, though. Welcome to the
sensible Honda Civic, baby.
Yeah, good old Zachary.
Look at me over here, shocked. Welcome to The Jump. I am a shocked Rachel Nichols, joined by our sensible senior writer and host of the Low Post podcast, Mr. Zach Lowe, NBA champ, four-time NBA finalist. I like to put that in there.
Yeah.
Richard Jones.
Thank you.
Chris Bosh, also an NBA champ. He is going to join us in a little bit. We'll play a round of BS or Real Talk later in the show. But first, it is entirely possible that we are going to look back on 2021 as the beginning of what we will call the Nets dynasty years. That this team could have a Warriors or Bulls-like grip on the entire NBA that's so tight when we kick off the beginning of each of the next few seasons, we could already feel like we know who's going to be holding the trophy at the end. If that's true, it will be a dynasty that didn't exactly sneak up on anyone, but did have its grand introduction muffled by all of the injuries its three stars have had over this season. And maybe that enabled the rest of the league to operate under the illusion that this year's title was more up for grabs than it actually is. Even as recently as a month ago, there was a fever pitch of hand-wringing over Brooklyn's lack of time to build chemistry. I remember tweeting back then about how silly those fears were when you looked at all the talent on the Nets roster, which I only mention since the replies to that tweet are a great snapshot of where a lot of fans' heads were at, telling me the Nets only look good against bad teams or that they were going to fall apart as soon as they faced pressure. Yeah, about that. It is now crystal clear that the Nets' chemistry is indeed just fine. It is also clear that even with one of their biggest stars injured, they are deep enough and talented enough to just keep going. Not only beating opponents, but embarrassing them. And make no mistake, the look on Durant's face after that shot, yeah, he knew what he did. Then it was Kyrie's turn to score on Giannis. Watch this pull up, just some beautiful ease there, right? By the end of the first quarter, Kevin and Kyrie alone had put more points on the scoreboard than the entire Bucks team. And it only got worse for Milwaukee from there, thanks in part to Bruce Brown and Blake Griffin, who showed that this team may be full of heavy hitters at the top, but it is not heavy. Blake in particular has had a terrific series so far, amplifying what has been a career rebirth since he joined the Nets. Take a look at even just his dunking numbers, which he attributes to his move to Brooklyn coinciding with his full recovery from knee surgery. That's how he explains it. Of course, that screen there, also a good reminder that the entire NBA knew that Blake was going to get bought out of Detroit before the All-Star break. And that any can see the difference in winning a championship, but as a complementary piece that can help pull the team through if it hits a rough patch due to things like injuries or COVID. Kyle Lowry, Lakers. Anyway, sorry, something stuck in my throat there. Anyway, all that Nets talent so overwhelmed the Bucks that at one point they led by 49 points. 49 points, people. It's
not 50, though, Rachel.
It's a lot.
Brooklyn
would finish the game shooting an absurd 50% from three, while the Bucks, yeah, it's not good. Giannis 2 for 7 from the line. Chris Middleton shot just 35% from the floor, and Milwaukee as a whole shot less than 30% from three. The Bucks now go back home down 0-2, which would be bad enough considering their opponent lost one of its best players 43 seconds into the series. But it is even worse when you look at the path the team took to get here. After 4 consecutive years of playoff bids that ended in resounding thuds, Milwaukee completely retooled its team this year, not just cashing in substantial assets to remake the roster, but spending countless hours working on new playing styles that were supposed to make them less vulnerable in the postseason. And at least so far, Brooklyn has come along, looked at all those hours and days and months of work, and laughed in Milwaukee's face. And hey, this series could get more competitive now that it is back on the Bucks floor. And maybe even if the Nets do get past Milwaukee, someone or something else could derail them. But it is also distinctly possible that Brooklyn is going to be holding that Larry O'Brien trophy, not just this year, but for years to come. An NBA dynasty that spent its first season kind of hiding in plain sight. So yesterday on The Jump, guys, you may remember we played a game of Panic or Patience after the Bucks Game 1 loss. And just here's a quick recap from the two of you in case you forgot. We'll just show everyone.
They lost Game 1 on the road. They shot horribly from 3. If they're going to panic about that, then I'm going to panic about everything in my life. So, of course, it's patience.
But I'm going to say patience, and I'm going to agree with Zach because of this reason. They won that 2-game little mini series that they had when James Harden was out.
Bucks come and win tonight. It's the whole narrative flips.
Right.
They got a split. They did everything they did. So, of course, you don't panic.
Preach patience. Do you feel like they're trying to set us up here?
I just want to know if things have changed. One of the big things they teach us.
It's a little bit of.
You're not allowed to get that close
I
to him.
didn't fly across the country to get humiliated
I don't
on national
understand.
television.
We did not dress alike like a cop,
I know.
like a cop comedy.
You do.
For you to treat us like that.
You already have your own television series, the Bold and the Beardiful. No,
the Bald and
the Bald and the Beardiful.
Yeah.
Now you want a buddy comedy cop show? Was that?
Yes, I would love it with Zach.
Yeah. No, I will. The reason why is because the biggest thing we do in journalism is talk about moments of change. Is this a moment of change for you, Richard, Zach?
It's panic time now because that was embarrassing. Look, did I see 49-point lead in the old crystal ball? I did not see that.
I don't think you had to.
That was an embarrassment. The Bucks had absolutely no clue on offense. They're going ISO against bad matchups and ignoring mismatches. They have no way to get Giannis going. They haven't solved the Nets pick and roll defense, which, by the way, has been very good, but they've been absolutely completely befuddled on offense. They have a look, frankly, of a team that is frazzled and in over their heads right now. And if they don't recover in Game 3, it's going to get ugly fast. The Nets are amazing. KD's amazing. They've been my pick to win the title all year. That was embarrassing last night.
Patience.
Ooh.
Preach.
Are you doubling
patience.
down?
Doubling down. You know why I'm doubling down? This is why I'm doubling down. The series doesn't start until one of the home team loses a game.
I hate that.
I don't care what you think. Right? I don't care. I'm not even mean to yell at you. We're on the same team here.
Yeah, you look alike.
No, but my point is this, is that Milwaukee has to go on and they have to protect their home court. Now, understand they won 2 games in Milwaukee. They're going to be more confident there. That is going to be a jolt of energy. And then you wonder if over a time, like KD and Kyrie are going to have to carry this load. And that's not something that we have seen them do for long periods of time. So there is still more unknown, I think, out there for the Nets. Short-handed James Harden. Yeah, you might be able to do things for 2, 3 games, 4 or 5 games. I'm not saying these guys can't carry the load, but they haven't been put in that position. So if you're the Bucks, you're still patient. Let's go home. Let's win one. Let's win another, and let's make them go win another one on their home floor. So I think you still teach patience until you lose a home game.
You said frazzled. They have literally been preparing for this series or a version of it for, what's a year at this point? Time is a flat circle. When was last season? I don't know. But for a long time. 8 months?
Yeah.
How are you frazzled?
Because the Nets, with 2 of the best players in the world, just came out and punched you in the face on their home floor. And by the way, they not only prepared for this series, they prepared for the Miami series specifically, and they looked great in that series. This is just a different level of opponent using different strategies that I think caught them off guard a little bit. The Nets, Steve Nash has coached, and his staff have coached a great first 2 games in addition to what the Stars are doing, which is outrageous, of course.
Patience, just patience. Look, the Milwaukee Bucks didn't shoot well in the first 2 games, right? Like, they need to calm down. They need to relax a little bit. They need to get into what they've been doing all year long. I actually like it more when Brook Lopez is playing inside out. Try and beat them up from the inside a little bit. But ultimately, if you're not going to shoot the ball well, if Chris Middleton's not going to shoot the ball well, you're going to struggle. But I think that this series is far from being like a dominant, like the Nets sweep.
So you say they haven't shot well, and they haven't. They're also just not getting the same shots. I think they've taken 56 threes in this series, which is less than their rate in the regular season. More than half of them have been off the dribble threes. In the regular season, 70% were catch and shoot threes. They're just not getting, for whatever reason, the same quality of looks.
Well, look, I want to talk a little bit about KD as well, because the man dropped 32 points on 12 of 18 from the field last night, right? You guys have had to sit next to me for years when I say, hey, there's a difference between who is the MVP of a particular season when the qualification is who had the best stats in the regular season versus, oh my God, who would you pick if you had to play a basketball game for your house and who would be your first pick on the blacktop. And that player right now, do you guys think that has become Kevin Durant?
All I'm going to say is that Kevin Durant recently said to keep him out of all of these conversations. So for today, I'm going to respect his wishes because I don't want any problems. I don't want any problems with Kevin Durant, but I think he's a really good player.
This is a positive conversation.
Oh, okay.
But it does inevitably force you to pit players against each other, which I don't like. I will say to me, full health LeBron still gets the benefit of the doubt until proven otherwise. But Kevin Durant was on pace before his injury to be one of the 10 greatest players of all time and is right back to being that player. He has been majestic in the playoffs. And it's not just the scoring. The first two games of this series were two of the highest volume pick and roll games for KD all season because they're just going right at Brook Lopez with James Harden out. Guess what? He's done amazing. He blocked Brook Lopez, who's a giant, in the post, put the ball in Brook Lopez's mouth. He's been cutting. PJ Tucker can't keep up with him on cuts. He's doing everything.
He's a 6'11" two guard that
he's 7 feet tall.
Okay, I just say that because he respectfully likes to call himself 6'11", and I'm just going to start respecting the man a little differently. What I'm saying though is like he handles it like a point guard. He shoots it like it's Stephen Clay, and he does every single thing on the court. It is absurd trying to guard this man. And you have Giannis, who is 6'11", 7 foot, with the same defensive. If you had to build a 6'11" defender, it would probably be Giannis. So these two are going at each other, and Kevin Durant is getting the better of them so far in this series, especially on that offensive-defensive matchup. So I just don't know if there is an answer. And yes, he is one of the great offensive players. And to your point, he'll probably go down as one of the top 10 players of all time.
Well, one of the answers has not been able to be PJ Tucker. He's just roasted PJ Tucker over and over again. I think the Bucks have to make a difficult decision. If PJ Tucker's on the floor to guard Kevin Durant and has no chance, do you still start him? Do you start a better shooter? Do you try Drew Holiday on Kevin Durant? Because that Tucker matchup is not working.
Well, I'm going to ask you a little bit tomorrow about adjustments before they play that next game. First of all, I am 5'4", so Zach looks 7 foot tall to me. So that being said, I honestly mean this question not as some pitting anyone against each other, but more as a compliment to Kevin. I thought he was on the precipice of being the first guy I would pick in a game of pickup a couple years ago. I thought that he was really moving into that position, and then he tore his Achilles.
I agree.
And it derailed sort of his continued ascension in the league. And frankly, again, as a compliment to KD, just the tremendous amount of work he has put into his game. I know he is nearly 7 feet tall, but sometimes I think when we make that point, and it's a valid point, it discounts how much effort he had to put into to be the first 6'11", 7 shooter who could shoot with that kind of reliability, play defense the way he has learned to play defense.
Handle it, everything.
All of
the
that.
Handle is the problem.
And to me, this is a question about giving Kevin Durant credit, because I think that he is at the top of his game after an Achilles injury, and possibly at the top of everyone's game. And that is a cool thing to be able to recognize. Coming up, for the first time in a decade, Steph Curry, LeBron James won't be playing in the finals.
Good.
Does this signify a larger changing of the guard? You are just rude. I'm complimenting Kevin Durant, and you're like, I don't want to pit people against each other. And then it is indeed. Make breaks. Kyrie out and running, stepping on the brakes, hits the triple over Giannis. Zach, we showed this earlier, but now let's talk about it. Is Kyrie in transition the most exciting Kyrie? I still vote for around the hoop, but what do you think?
I think around the hoop. I sometimes think, what would happen to me if I had to defend? Would I just fly into the stands and never recover? I would fall over, obviously. That's just rude. This is rude dribbling.
People do this for a living, Zach, and they still fall into the stands. So if people don't do this for a living, it could get really awkward. Look, Kyrie, I think Kyrie around the basket, the left hand, the high floater, all the different English, that's the sexiest. But if this is your second best part of your game,
pretty good.
His godfather, Rod Strickland, says he is the most skilled player in NBA history. You can argue with him, but you can't say he's crazy. Miss, chaos, big Jokic, rumbling down the court. The man oopsed it to himself. Look at this.
Yeah,
the agility, the gazelle-like manner. Richard.
When you say that players just see the game, and we've seen this from a ton of players, but this is a 6'10", non-jumping Serbian that can just move the ball.
I'm not saying gazelle-like movement sarcastically. I am saying that this is a transformed man who can move differently on the basketball court than when he first came in the league.
You don't see this from very many guys.
He improvised it out of nowhere, and of course he didn't dunk it, which is perfect, Yoke. He just laid it in nice and soft.
Nice little considerate 2 points in your face. Absolutely. No, when we talk about the weight loss, I know it's sometimes just good to be like, oh, he's not drinking the gallon of Coke a day. The man used to drink a gallon of Coke a day, or any of that, but that actually has an effect on the court. He moves better. He defends better. It is an impressive amount of discipline. Let's talk more about the remaining teams in the playoffs. None of the 8 teams alive in the NBA postseason have won a title since the playoffs expanded to 16 teams in 1984. In fact, the most recent title won by a team remaining in this year's playoffs, the '83 Sixers, a team led by Moses Malone and Dr. J. Here is Chris Paul on the new blood, still playing with him, one of the old guys still left out here.
Yeah, it's kind of dope to see. 16 years I've been in the league, you haven't seen anything like this. So it is what it is. Everybody's out here competing. Everybody's trying to take their team somewhere that they haven't been. So.
Excellent perspective from CP3. Now for some more perspective, how long ago was 1984? Ghostbusters, highest grossing film of the year. The #1 song of the year, When Doves Cry. Thank you very much, Prince. How about the #1 album, Born in the USA by Bruce Springsteen, exciting every sports writer I've ever met. The NBA, well, every male sports writer I've ever met, let's be honest. The NBA's leading scorer, Adrian Dantley. 30.6 points per game. Darryl Griffith led the league with 91 threes made that season, which is amazing that someone led the league with 91 threes. Zach, with a champion that we, by definition, have not seen in a long time, is there a changing of the guard, a larger changing of the guard happening in the league, or is this just kind of a fluke year?
7-year-old me was definitely pumping Born in the USA in 1984. It's a changing of the guard to some degree. Luka, Trey, Booker, the Philly guys, on and on. It's awesome. It's good for the league. I'm sure ratings might go down, but long term, the product is bigger than 1 or 2 players who won't be around forever. And then you have Kawhi and KD, who have been at the apex for a long time, and it just feels new because they've moved around so much in the player empowerment era.
I think there is a little bit of a changing of the guard, but for people to like Steph not having Clay, and now you're like, well, now it's Trey's turn, and it's like, no. Steph ain't go nowhere.
Still Steph's turn.
This is still Steph's turn. It's like, oh, well, now you got it's Luka because LeBron's not, and it's like, no. Yeah. LeBron's team's going to get healthy, so it more gives you a glimpse of what could be than what is here right now. I don't think this is a full changing, but it lets you know that the league is in a very, very good place for the next 10, 15 years.
Well, I like seeing just more of these teams and fan bases get a shot at things. Now, I did say at the top of the show, we might be, and we don't know yet, but we might be entering into what we will later call the Nets dynasty years. So I don't know how much of a shot they're going to get. We'll just have to see. But I do think that, we all lived through the, oh my God, what's the NBA going to do when Michael Jordan retires, which we lived through it 3 times. That we did. I'm sorry. I wrote like 8 of those stories. I don't think there's going to be that hand wringing when some of the top guys who are in the older 35 and older group retire, because we know who's going to inherit the league, and we're watching them right now, and that's pretty awesome.
We're going to disagree.
Really? What? Tell me.
No, I just think that, like, when you look at this guard that is here right now of, let's say, 32 and above, when that's a big...
It's 35.
Well, I'm just saying 32 and above, because 32 means your career can go differently very quickly, just with age. Like, look at Carmelo. Like, he was great. He had a moment, and now he's back.
I'm still going to consider 32 the prime of a current NBA player's career because of the advances in sports medicine, and you played past that, just saying. All right, for more on the... You also retired multiple times. For more on the changing of the guard, here's what the Jump recommends for today. Did you or did you not? This is a great piece on ESPN Plus. Kevin Arnovitz writing on why Luka Doncic and Trae Young represent, in fact, the next generation of NBA stars. So you want to continue this conversation? Do it on your own during the break, but join us next, because coming up, 2021 Hall of Fame honoree Chris Bosh joins the Jump to discuss Nuggets coach Michael Malone, saying his team had a soft mentality in Game 1 against the Suns. Stick around for that. would never have to buy a meal there. Richard and Chris both had their on-court battles, and we just thought you guys haven't been on together in a while.
Oh.
I don't know, Richard. Do you remember this dunk in 2000?
Yes, I remember that. 100%, because look, that was CB4. Chris Bosh was a future Hall of Famer. I got a body. Damn right I remember that.
Well, we did have 3 years later, Chris.
I do not remember that play at all.
No, it's just escaped your memory.
Why was I trying to take charges?
I don't know. You were young. That's why. Oh, that was a foul.
That was clean.
That was clean. That was really clean.
That's clean.
You guys had already taken game one. I remember that.
He got a clean block.
Something.
Yeah, that was but I knew he was a future Hall of Famer, so that's why when I got the dunk, I was like, yeah, I got him. I got him, but while he was still trying to take charges.
Mm-hmm. You got him on the rise, though.
Yeah.
You didn't get him up here.
Oh, my gosh.
Just saying. All right, time to bring back one of our favorite games here on The Jump. Oh, yes, it is time for...
The ball deserves to go in the crowd after a bullshit move like that.
I think it's bullshit.
I just thought it was bullshit.
Don't give me that crap!
Yes, that's right. It's BS or Real Talk. The talk show music, the game show music really sells it. We give you the quotes, you give us emojis. All right, so the Nuggets dropped game one to the Suns last night. The Nuggets committed 8 different and one fouls in that game. Coach Michael Malone was not happy about it. Here is what he said after the game. Take a listen.
This game to me was eerily similar to game one against Portland. I think we had way too many breakdowns tonight from a coverage standpoint. I think 7 of their 13 threes they made were from the corners, and a lot of that was missed assignments, not communicating. We gave up 8 N1s tonight. I think had a soft mentality. You can't give up 8 N1s in a playoff game. If you're going to foul somebody, foul them and not let them get the N1.
Is Michael Malone saying the Nuggets had a soft mentality in game one, BS or Real Talk? And Richard, you were talking through that entire soundbite, so you go first. Fine. It's like a toddler, Chris, at a dinner table.
It's bad. It's 100% because he knows his team better than anybody else. Why argue with the man? If his team's going to go down in flames, like, he knows his team's better than anybody else up here. We could sit up here and say, yeah, they played soft. No, you played against a better team that played defense. That's not the Portland Trailblazers out there, Coach. So if you're telling us that you're telling your guys, that's fine, because that's what you're basically doing. You're telling the media that you've told their guys that you had to play harder. So I agree with them.
It's a motivational tactic, right?
I'm with it.
Oh, what do you got?
I think he gave the real answer early in the statement when he said we missed a lot of coverages tonight. You know why you missed a lot of coverages tonight? Not because you played soft, because the Suns are awesome and they have one of the most sophisticated pick and roll games in the league with flare screens and people moving around directions you can't track, and they just tore the Nuggets apart. I don't think the Nuggets lost that game because they were soft. I think Phoenix went out and took it from them because they played awesome.
Talk that noise.
What do you got, Chris Bosh? BS or Real Talk?
Well, I'm going to go with Real Talk, and I got to disagree with you. As a coach, I mean, RJ, we've been there, right? That speech when you've given up 8 and 1s, that's pretty staggering.
Yeah.
Let's keep it real. You know, leaders lead. That's something that I always love to say. This is Malone leading his team right now. And if he feels, in his opinion, that they're playing soft and he has guys that aren't on their rotations. And look, soft just doesn't mean from a physical nature. Soft can be a mentality. If they're not concentrating on the things they need to concentrate on, like you said, the Suns, they're a very good team. And if they came in game one not nailing their rotations, coming out, not having those defensive coverages proper, and giving up a lot of points to a home team, you know, it is what it is. But with that said, you know, a coach is going to have to wake his team up for game two. Yep. That's what it's about now. And I think if they put all their energy into that, you know, the rule, you just need one.
That's right.
So this is Malone telling his team to wake up. And let's get game two.
And there's levels of that with coaches, right? Sometimes it's just sort of gently telling their players, getting in their ears one-on-one. Sometimes it's to the whole team, talking about a softness or a mentality or anything like that. And then sometimes there's that next DEFCON step of telling the media, not as a message to let your team hear it, but just so that they know that you have now called them out nationally and that you expect a result. And there's a little bit of, I mean, look, it's touch, right? And if a coach goes too far, I know from talking to you guys, it seems like then he can lose the locker room, but clearly he feels that this is the right way to go with his team, and he has coached so well this season. I am with him, until he shows us that he has lost some guys. It has not happened yet. Let's move on to the Trailblazers, who are looking for a new coach these days. General Manager Neil O'Shea is leading that search, and when he asked about his job security yesterday and his media availability, here is what he had to say to that question. Take a listen.
Well, I'm running the coaching search. I have multiple years left on my contract. I think the feeling is that in this instance, Jason, while in the past there might have been questions, the first round loss and the defensive rating at 29 was not a product of the roster.
Okay. Neil O'Shea saying that the first round loss was, quote, not a product.
I'm glad Chris laughing too. I'm glad Chris laughing. Chris is like, ooh.
Can I get this one?
Go ahead, knock it out, please.
I can't say BS or real talk. I would have to say real talk from a sense of you understand that there was a separation and a divide between the general manager and the head coach, and that's what that is. And with that said, he's putting himself on the line. And, at the same time, multiple years on your contract doesn't mean much at all.
Exactly.
We've seen many people, have multiple years on their contract at home. But with that said, that puts the onus on the GM to make the right decisions in the locker room. Find a head coach that's going to lead this team while Dame is in his prime. I think that's very important for them to get a product that reflects a championship team pretty much right now. I mean, they don't have time to waste. So we'll see what happens. That makes for a huge offseason for the Blazers.
He was saying that to everybody that would listen. Make no mistake. He was like, I got multiple years on my contract. He was like, I'm running the coaching search, not Dame Lillard. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And he's basically saying, he's like, I put together a great team. That defensive rating in the first round loss, that ain't on me. That was on somebody else, and that other person is gone. That's basically what this man said, and I can't disagree with him. I think it is, to a certain degree, I think that is real talk, because this team should not have had this defensive rating. And I even kind of said, like, hey, as much as, like, Dame scored 55 and did all that defensive rating, some of that falls on Dame, too. So it's like collectively their team has to be better defensively, but that's real talk. I think their roster was far better than what they performed.
Zach, what's your sign say?
I don't like coming on TV and holding up poop emojis, but if you're forcing me to choose, Chris didn't have to choose. I have to choose. I just think
Make the Hall of Fame. You won't have to choose.
Yeah, that's true. I just think it's on everything. When you lose in the first round with the 29th ranked defense to a team missing 2 of its 4 or 5 best players, including its second best player by far, it's on everyone. No one gets to say that it's not them, it's that other person. I do think the roster with Nurkic, they had a pretty good defense for most of the season, just not in this series. I wonder if some of it is they paid Derrick Jones Jr. a lot of money to play defense and he was buried out of the rotation. I think the Zach Collins injury was a big deal that doesn't get talked enough about. So clearly something was awry in Portland. But if I have to pick a sign, I'm going to pick this guy.
Well, I would also point out that some of the Portland fans' frustration seems to be not just with this season or this series, right? They had that great run to the conference finals a couple of years ago. I'm not taking anything away. You play who's in front of you, and they did. But I don't think that was emblematic necessarily of this team's playoff success or not over the last 3 or 4 years. They've had some disappointing years and some disappointing postseasons. And so I think some of the frustration of Blazers fans who know what an elite talent and just exceptional human they have in Damian Lillard, they want to see a roster built around him that possibly looks a little bit different than this one. And we'll see if the coaching change is enough, but I'm also in agreement that Neil O'Shea is a bit on the clock here, too.
Oh, heck yeah, he's on the clock, because if he gets this wrong, he's the next one that's gone.
No matter how many years are left on someone's contract, as Chris points out. All right, coming up, Chris is going to stick with us. Doc Rivers spoke up in defense of how Ben Simmons gets officiated when playing, quote, physical defense. I don't want to say this is gamesmanship for Game 2, but it's gamesmanship for Game 2, and we're going to talk about it. That's next.
I love it. I love the game one.
The offense is bumping just as much as the defense. I have a list of games where then the whistle blows. It's almost, wait a minute, That's defense.
So, Chris, do you agree with Doc that he is right, or do you think that maybe they hope Ben Simmons is very physical with Trae Young tonight and they want to sort of have that preview to the officials, hey, don't call everything? Or maybe is it both?
It's a little bit of both. Look, we're in playoff basketball right now, right? And it's all about the chess match. And for Philly to get to their game, they need to be very physical defensively. You kind of saw Atlanta doing anything they wanted out there on the court. And as in regards to the fouls on Trae Young, I'm not going to penalize a guy for exploiting the rules. I will say to the league, though, we're in a place where we're scoring as many points in history of the game. I always look at the game as a big, right? And I would be the person trying to defend Trae Young. What else can I do?
Right.
You know, every other quarter or every quarter or 2 times a quarter, we're looking at flagrant foul reviews. Guys are getting free throws. We're getting to the bonus quicker. I just say let the gentleman play ball. If he's making contact and he's getting fouled, I mean, that makes it tough on the defender, and especially as a shooter, you know, he builds up a rhythm. And look, he knows, he's smart. He's going to manipulate the refs into getting his calls. So I'm very interested to see what's going to happen. You know, Philly, they want to play brawl ball. They want to get up and into him and make it tough on him. I think this will be a pinnacle game to see how that strategy will work and how it will be implemented going forward for the rest of the playoffs. Because RJ, as you know, when it's playoff time, it's way more physical. I want to see the guys play ball.
I trust that Doc has done his homework and he's got the reams of evidence. I think that's all true. And I do agree with the general point that bigger guys, and Ben Simmons is 6'10", are held to some sort of higher standard with official than little guys. But I will defend Trae Young. All the stuff he does is not just to manipulate the referees. He does do that. Let's be clear. But all those little pauses and hesitation dribbles, he's trying to manipulate the big man dropping back to try and convince him, oh, he's going to lob it to Capella or he's going to do this and that. There's a method to what he's doing. And you could see it even. Matisse Thybulle is one of the best perimeter defenders in the league. You could see he was thrown off by Trae's weird rhythm, and he didn't foul him, but he would take a step back, and all of a sudden Trae would have this window of space, and that's what he wants. You give him that window of space, all of a sudden you're confused, you're uncertain. He's really, really good at it, and it's not just ref baiting, even if it's a little bit ref baiting.
Well, and my thing is this, is that you know what the NBA is seeing. They're seeing it. They saw it with Kevin Durant's sweep through that they disallowed. You see it with James Harden putting his arms out and kicking. And anytime somebody does a ticky-tack foul, you get that. Trae Young doesn't need this, but he's going to use it if you continue to allow him. Do I think that Ben Simmons is getting picked on or getting kind of pointed at? Well, yeah, if you have a 250-pound guy, that if he bumps a 200-pound guy, that guy's going to go flying and it's going to look like that. So I understand what Doc is saying, but ultimately the league has trended this way where little guys can manipulate all the little stop and pops, all those things. They started calling those fouls on the ground versus giving people shooting fouls. So the league is trying to do it. I just think they need to be a little bit more proactive with making this a more balanced offensive and defensive league.
I mean, look, I feel better about Doc Rivers saying any of this than the mayor of New York.
I was going to mention that. I just left it out because he did such a terrible
hunting
job
fouls,
at it.
which was just ridiculous. Doc does have some points, and we'll have to see if the officiating changes. We talked about this when it happened. What is your opinion about this tweet and the league's penalty, which Daryl then tried to sort of take back, and I was confused.
It's not his most expensive tweet.
No, he didn't pay for the other one. No, okay, never mind. Zach?
Might be time to delete the old Twitter account.
Might be time.
Doesn't seem to be working out financially.
Maybe tweets aren't your thing, Daryl.
I mean, I find it entertaining. I'm just saying.
It was like a post about Seth Curry, and I believe he tweeted, "Join him." To Steph liking
can't do that. That's what I'm saying. Tweets aren't
his thing. It was Steph saying, my brother's awesome, and then Daryl said, join him, or some version of that.
That's illegal.
And then he tried to explain if I meant as a fan.
No, that is a no. Sorry. Doesn't work, Daryl. You're not a fan. You are the head of the Philadelphia 76ers.
Just don't tweet. Never tweet. Hashtag don't tweet.
Hashtag. Stay off of Twitter. I do.
The Clippers and the Jazz starting their series tonight in Utah. You stay off of nothing, Richard Jefferson. One of the biggest challenges for the Jazz will be defending Kawhi Leonard, who eviscerated the Mavs, especially in the last few games of the first round. Leonard averaging 32 points a game, shooting 61% over the entire 7-game series against Dallas. Zach, how should the Jazz defend Kawhi in this series? What's going to be different for him?
I think we should send a gift basket and some Gatorade to Royce O'Neal's house because he's about to have an uncomfortable couple of weeks guarding Kawhi Leonard and sometimes guarding Paul George. I mean, it's a brutal assignment, and he's really their only great answer to it, and he's going to need help, just like every other great player. Every other defender needs help against a great player, but this is a tough matchup, and the burden on Royce O'Neal in this series is enormous because he's their only real answer, and it's a tough question. The Kawhi Leonard question is a really tough question. He's playing. I mean, the last week of Kawhi Leonard has been as good as human beings have played basketball.
Yes.
Yeah, well, and look, we can also look to Donovan Mitchell. This is part of the growth for Donovan Mitchell. Like, you can go out there and guard. And guard. Yeah, it's like they got two guys over there. You can't just look at Royce to go out there.
He'll guard Paul George a lot.
No, I know he will, but that's what I'm saying. Like, this is like, for Utah fans and for Donovan Mitchell, this is that next level, right? When you look at great players that now go guard great players and slow them down, it's not just, oh, our guy's going to score 50 and have 50 against Jamal Murray. It's like, no, you got to take on that challenge. You want to be a great player, and he has all the tools to be a great two-way player.
Richard, what do you think about Kawhi's sort of stamina? I don't know if that's the right word, but I was at Game 6 and 7. He had to work very hard on both sides of the ball. Do you feel like the quick turnaround that the Clippers are going to have is going to impact him at all?
I think it goes in waves. There's going to be a game where maybe you get blown out and all of a sudden you get rest, or you get, you blow them out and you get rest. So I think he'll be fine. I think he catches up. Guys typically can recover over the course of a series.
I think they'll also try to give him an easier assignment defensively at the start of the series.
At least at the start, and we will see. Good series coming up tonight. Thank you to everyone. Thanks to Chris.